Tens of thousands of people in Beijing returned to work yesterday, April 1st, after months away from the office. Streets, which were for weeks had barely any traffic, were filled with cars.
Beijing's second ring road, a major thoroughfare going through the capital, even experienced slight traffic jams. Here's China correspondent Elizabeth Law with more on Beijing's first day back at work.
对，我今天要去客户那边，刚路过这儿，我去趟银行，挺好的。我跟家待的时间太长了，我就是恢复以前的生活很好。那没办法，又怎么着，一天不吃不喝了。
在家里已经待的闲的已经闲透了，所以现在复工的感觉挺好。觉得上班吧对自己好一些，老窝在家里不好，感觉挺好的。就是说现在地铁上人很多，流量很大，没有以前就是说我就是没复工之前我也出门逛逛，然后那个地铁上人很稀少，还有座位，然后现在呢就是已经很满。
Well, Elizabeth joins us now live from Beijing. So Liz, in the video we heard two people, Mr. Song and Miss Liu, saying that they're happy to go back to work. Is this sentiment more widely shared in Beijing at the moment?
Hi, Olivia. Hi, Yan. Yes, so I think this is something this is a sentiment that quite a lot of Singaporeans are probably starting to be able to identify with, because these Beijingers, they've been at home for more than 2 months now. Some of them have tried telecommuting, but I think because of the way the Chinese work structure is and how Chinese companies operate, telecommuting hasn't been quite suitable, or there isn't really a proper infrastructure for it. So for people to actually go back to the office, it's like, yes, finally there's something to do. So quite a few people that we spoke to seemed really excited to be back in the office, whether be it an office building or even going to, because obviously if you work in a shop, you can't telecommute. So yeah, they just seem excited to be able to get out of their homes.
Right. Now, Liz, now that China is getting back to the swing of things, the government is pushing out a message to relax, eat out and shop. But how have the Chinese people responded so far?
I wouldn't say that they really are pushing out a message to relax. They do keep reminding people that we are still in extraordinary times and we do have to be very, very careful. So even if there are efforts to try and get people out, there are still a lot of measures that are in place. Like if you eat at a restaurant, you do have to socially distance. Some places say that you can only have a maximum of 2 people at a table. Others say that, okay, fine, if you have a table of 4 or 6, you can only sit in a staggered manner. You cannot face each other. And when you are not eating, so in the past few days that I've been out, members of staff at these places do remind you to always, when you're not eating, please keep your mask on, even if you're chatting with a friend or having a coffee. So there are all these other things. I wouldn't say that it is in a state of relax yet.
Well, Liz, even as restrictions have eased, asymptomatic cases have become the latest focus in China. There are nagging worries that it will see a second wave of infection. So what are the authorities doing to alleviate these fears?
So there are quite a lot of measures. Obviously, imported cases, first and foremost, something that Chinese authorities are very, very worried about. We've seen that from last Saturday, they've said that no foreigners will be allowed in, even if you have a long-term visa. So quite a few people that we know, including our colleague, China correspondent Denson Chong, if he wanted to come back, he would not be allowed in, and other people that we know as well. And secondly, from last Sunday, they've now limited the number of flights. So each airline is only allowed to operate 1 international flight into China per week. So today, the Civil Aviation Authority had actually said that they are trying to limit the number of flights into China per week to about 135. So far, the number is far lower than that. It's about 109. And they are trying to keep it at that level because as of today, there are about 700 imported cases. Most of these are Chinese returning from overseas, pretty much just like the way infections are in Singapore. But still, having these sort of imported infections still not ideal. Now that aside, then there are the asymptomatic cases. As of today, there were 55 new asymptomatic cases, and as of now, this brings the total to just over 1,000. But the tricky part about this is that the Chinese government, because of their calculation method, they still don't consider this part of the official statistic, which makes it a little bit difficult to properly track how many cases there are altogether. But the thing is that these asymptomatic patients, they are being kept in hospitals, they are being quarantined. So they are just being treated basically just like a patient. It's just that they're not being added to the official statistic.
Right. You have an article that is out today about top foreign ministry officials from China and Singapore committing to keep their borders open to ensure the smooth movement of essential goods and personnel while safeguarding public health. Can you tell us more about that?
Yeah, so senior foreign ministry officials, the permanent secretary of Singapore's Foreign Affairs Ministry, Mr. Chi Wee Kiong, and the vice foreign minister of China, they led their respective delegations in a virtual meeting yesterday, and obviously they talked about a whole range of topics, including what you mentioned about trying to make sure that air and sea freights are still going smoothly, so that important personnel, essential personnel and cargo can move between the countries. At the same time, they also talked about public health measures that both countries are taking. Singapore talked about our approach, China talked about their approach, and also both sides obviously are very concerned about the region because Singapore being a part of ASEAN and China is a very, very important ASEAN partner. So there is a lot of concern there, and both obviously would try their best to make sure that the situation is controlled within the region. And of course, the JCBC, which Singapore is slated to host the next session, what top high on the agenda is public health. So these are things that are in consideration and that we'll discuss.
Well, as always, thank you so much for your time, Liz, and stay safe in Beijing. Of course, that was China correspondent for the Straits Times, Elizabeth Law.